Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, and I'm usually a very positive man. I kind of pride myself on being a very positive dude, seeing the good in things, being overly excitable. Frankly, there are some places where I've worked especially where my enthusiasm has become near legendary. Today, I don't want to be enthusiastic. I want to count down the 10 worst Pokémon V that we've had so far. We did do a ranking like 6 months ago, but we didn't have that many Pokémon Vs. I only did a top 5 worst. But the good news is, well, I went and searched on pkmncards.com, and it's a little hard because some have had more than one printing, but it's like 85 to 90 of them now. There's a few to be getting on with, though I do need to start off with an apology. My apology to Keldeo V. I put Keldeo V on the list of the 5 worst Pokemon V before. Keldeo V does not belong on that list of worst Pokemon V. Not even slightly. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Keldeo V is some kind of phenomenal Uber card, but I am telling you that an attack that for free colourless energy does 50 damage, plus 30 more for each water energy on this Pokemon, is a nice tech in a Frostmoth deck. So I'm sorry, that should never have been on the list. I apologise, I was wrong. There we go. Now, we are looking at Pokemon V here, but I think it's probably fair to say that we are going to be leaving out any that have a good V max. So if, for instance, we take Colossal, great card. If you're talking about the V max, terrible card if you're talking about the V. But because we've got the really good V max, I'm not putting it anywhere near this list. So with the preamble done, let's start off at number 10 with Galarian Cursola. Now, Galarian Cursola, it's one of those cards that on the face of it, it looks fine. It looks like there are some things that we can potentially get a little bit excited about. But nothing really comes together. It's got a really nice ability whereby if it's in the active spot, whenever your opponent attaches an energy from their hand to one of their Pokemon, you put 3 damage counters onto that Pokemon. Which sounds good, but it's only when it's active, so it doesn't stack, and 3 damage counters just isn't really enough. It just never really gets too high. Not high enough, unfortunately, which is a little bit sad. And then the attack for 2 energy does 60 damage. You put 3 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way that you like. But again, it's not enough damage. And honestly, that's where we end up with this. The ability is fine, but it doesn't do quite enough. And the attack is fine, but the damage output's a little bit too low. And so it ends up coming in on this list. In at number 9, we've got Grapploct. Interestingly enough, another one that came around in Champion's Path. A lot of the weaker ones did end up in Champion's Path, unfortunately. Now, Grapploct is fine. It's got an attack for 1 fighting energy that does 20 damage. And if the defending Pokemon is a basic, it cannot attack during your opponent's next turn. But 20 damage isn't very much, and your opponent can just switch. Obstagoon is the opposite of this. Obstagoon is any basic Pokemon can't attack it next turn, but this is only the defending basic Pokemon can't attack it next turn, and we just end up in a really awkward position where it's just not good enough. It's not terrible, it's not offensive, it's not good enough. In at number 8, and another apology is owed here, we owe an apology to Celebi V. I put Celebi V number 1 on my previous list as the worst Pokemon V. And with a few more months under our belt and a bunch of games, and to be fair, a bunch of new cards, which is important, it doesn't belong there. It's a bit good. For 2 energy, you do 50 damage base, plus 20 more for each of your bench Pokemon. So 2 energy, 150 damage is pretty good. Yeah, the HP is still low, and you'll still be pretty much 2-hit KOing anything which gives up more than 1 prize and isn't weak. But you can get the energy on there using Rillaboom or using Turbo Patch. And there's just options here. I don't think it's a phenomenal card, let's be clear, but I do think I was a bit mean to it before. 2 energy, decent damage, good energy acceleration, will take it. One that I have much less good things to say about is Mew V. I'm afraid Mew V comes in on this list, comes in all the way in at number 7 on this list, and I just don't have good things to say about Mew V. Now, Mew V has, again, very low HP, only 1 attack, 2 colorless energy, 30 damage for each energy attached to both active Pokemon. And you can use Turbo Patch here, but it's just not building up fast enough. And if your opponent doesn't have lots of energy on, it's just not going to work. Now, if you happen to be against a Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX, such that you're hitting for weakness, things are different. Outside of that, why would you not just play Victini? Victini's got the same attack, and it is the same attack, but you got 10 more HP, and given that it's for 2 fire energy, that opens up Welder. And early in the game, if you're not too worried about being gusted and KO'd, it opens up Volcanion. So you're basically talking about same Pokemon, more advantages. Sorry. In at number 6, we've got Eevee V. Now, I enjoy saying Eevee V. Eevee V is a very fun thing to say, but it's not a particularly good card. Now, one thing I do find very interesting here is that Eevee does actually have a VMAX, but it's a VMAX which is only out in Japan. We have no idea if and when it's coming out over here. I do not believe any kind of release has been announced. So, sorry. Eevee V came out as a promo. I'm sure the VMAX will at some point. 1 colorless energy, draw 3 cards is actually a nice attack. Basic Pokemon, single energy, go second, end your turn drawing 3, but not for a Pokemon that gives up 2 prizes. Give me this on a decent HP single prize Pokemon. I am all in favour. Give it to me on a fairly low HP Pokemon that gives up 2 prizes. You ain't going to get much interest out of me. Then we got free energy, 80 damage, 160 if you played a supporter from your hand. And you probably will have, but you're a Pokémon V, so there's no twin energy. You're a basic, so there's no triple acceleration energy. And sure, you can use stuff like Welder and Turbo Patch, but the reality is we've just got better targets for those cards. There's nothing particularly good about Eevee V. The VMAX isn't so bad, but yeah, the VMAX isn't here yet, ladies and gentlemen. So as it stands at the moment, we're still waiting. In at number 5, another one of the ones that got kind of shunted into Champion's Path. And as a fun little side note, the only metal Pokemon in Champion's Path. It's Duraludon V. And Duraludon V is one of these ones that I want to look at and like. It's got an ability that says it takes 30 less damage from attacks. And for free colorless energy, you do 10 damage plus 40 more for each metal energy on Duraludon. So then I start thinking, well, Turbo Patch works here, and Metal Saucer works here, and maybe we can start just piling metal energy on and smashing. You've got 220 HP, you've got an ability that lets you take less damage, you've got Metal Goggles, which will mean you take even less damage. You've got Lucario and Melmetal's GX attack, which means you'll take even less damage. And actually, when you come down to it at the end, it's just... well, the phrase I like to use is spectacularly underwhelming. It's not bad, but when you've got Pokemon like Zacian V that do 230 for free energy, this can get up to more than that. But for free energy, you do 130, 100 damage less. Hard to justify playing it, unfortunately, and that's why it comes on the list. In at number 4, we got one that kind of snuck on there by just being a little bit rubbish, but kind of, you know, just down low. From Vivid Voltage, it's Ampharos V. Now, this one has just come out, and I have done winning decks based around this, so maybe it's going to end up being better than I thought it would be. I'm just really not buying it at this stage. I don't think it's going to end up being good. And honestly, I think the biggest issue with Ampharos is we have got really good lightning Pokemon. Tapu Koko V, good Pokemon, sees a bunch of play. Boltund V, good Pokemon, sees a bunch of play. Pikachu and Zekrom, good Pokemon, sees a bunch of play. Raichu and Alolan Raichu, good Pokemon, sees a bunch of play. You see where we're going with this? I don't think Ampharos can come in there. 2 energy, 50 damage plus confusion we're not even buying here. 3 energy, 120 plus 30 more to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon with any damage on. And maybe we can make some kind of spreading deck, maybe using Roxy and Weezing to spread damage around. But it just seems a little bit slow, if I'm honest with you. And then if your opponent's playing something like a Mew to protect their bench, you're done. If they're playing a bunch of healing, you might be done. If they're playing something like Lucario and Melmetal, you're done. It just seems like there are other good lightning Pokemon, and there's way too much that can go wrong with this, and that's why I regretfully put it on the list. This is the one on the list that I didn't really want to put on here, but the fact of the matter is, I looked at all the Pokemon V, and I looked at which ones see play and which ones have potential, and I came down with the fact that it is one of the very few that I look at and go, even though I got a little excited the first time round, the more I look at it, the more I think I'm never putting that in a deck. Similarly, I don't think I'm ever putting Pincurchin V into a deck. I just don't think Pincurchin V is good enough. And again, that makes me a little bit sad, because I like Pincurchin as a Pokemon, but I just don't like this card. The ability says that when it is damaged, you flip 3 coins, and for each heads, you put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. And that sounds fine. It sounds good even. But 3 energy, 120 damage. So let's say your opponent attacks and you flip 3 heads. And then you attack with Sparking Strike. You have done a total of 210 damage. But Pikachu and Zekrom could have done 150 and accelerated 3 energy. Tapu Koko V could have done 200, which okay is 10 less, but didn't require a 1 in 8 chance of flipping 3 heads. Raichu and Alolan Raichu could have done 160 plus paralysis. Even when you flip treble heads with Pincurchin V, it is still underwhelming. That's kind of terrifying. And if your opponent is using stuff like poison, or you don't flip enough heads or whatever, and you don't get the ability, you're left with a terribly underwhelming Pokemon, and that's before we even mention the 170 HP, which is pretty much offensive when you are looking at 2 prize Pokemon. Hey ho. In at number 2, another Pokemon that got very high up on the previous list, Pincurchin did, and so does Polteageist. Polteageist, honestly, if you put this as number 1 as the worst Pokemon V out there, I wouldn't be upset. And again, it's a really cool Gen 8 Pokemon. I love Polteageist V. I think it's a really fun Pokemon. I just don't think it's a good card. The ability, if it's in the active and damaged by an attack, you discard a random card from your opponent's hand, except you don't discard it, you put it on the bottom of their deck. And it is a single card. So yeah, fine, this ability gives hand disruption, but oh my goodness, it is just about the weakest, worst, most underwhelming hand disruption you could ever find. But surely it's got a good attack. Well, no, we know it doesn't have a good attack. I wouldn't have put it like number 2 on the list if it had a good attack. 3 energy, 100 damage plus confusion. No! That's appalling. That is so bad. 3 energy, 100 damage actually makes Pincurchin's attack look good. And then, even bearing that in mind that you get the confusion, it's confusion. Every so often, confusion will stick. It will happen sometimes, but not often. Again, a lot of you have been playing the game for a while. Just think back. How many times have you been confused, and how many times have you had to flip for confusion? We're playing so many switching cards at the moment, it rarely sticks. And I don't see Polteageist ever being good. Not unless we get the world's most broken confusion cards, but even then, there are way better Pokemon that can take advantage of confusion. But in at number 1, it's a new entry for Hatterene V, which incidentally is kind of interesting because it is another Psychic-type promo Pokemon V, which of course is how you could describe Polteageist here. Hatterene V, I love the Hatterene V box. I think it's awesome. And I like buying Champion's Path and opening Champion's Path, as you will have seen on this channel. And there's a lot to love about the Hatterene V box. It's not how you say Hatterene, is it? And you get the Jumbo, and it's collectible. And look, we all want all the promos. I want all the promos, so yeah, go for it. Hatterene V, go team! But the fact of the matter is, this card sucks. 2 energy, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon when they're active, and it's confused. Well, I just told you confusion can be quite an easy thing to get around. I didn't even mention evolving. But in what world is this 2 energy and doesn't do any damage? There are plenty of drag your opponent's Pokemon active and do this for a single energy. Confusion doesn't guarantee damage like Burn or Poison would. It doesn't give them a chance of not attacking going into their turn like Paralysis or Sleep would, so they can just switch, and even if they don't bother, they can still flip a coin. And then when we get to the attack, you might be thinking, oh, well, maybe the attack's good. No! 3 energy, 90 damage, 180 if they're confused. Now, I will say, we do have Yellhorn. Yellhorn will confuse both active Pokemon, and it will guarantee you to 180. But bearing in mind, I showed you that Tapu Koko does 200 for free energy and has free retreat and better support. And this does 180 for free energy if you play a Yellhorn. And even then, you've got to have a Pokemon in the active that you can get out the active. It's just not looking good, ladies and gentlemen. And I end up spectacularly underwhelmed. I feel really good about my 1 and 2 here. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? And, give me a full top 10. I'd be delighted. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far, the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.